What are some of the features of translingual practice or translanguaging, and what do speech language pathologists need to be aware of when analyzing language samples?
Translanguaging has often been confused for code switching, and what translanguaging says is that multilingual children are constantly aware of their environment and pulling in social cues to make meaning, make sense of the world, and then externalize some level of communication depending on what the situation calls for, what the social context calls for. And that there isn't a necessarily switching back and forth as we know code switching, that language is not categorical, but that it exists on a unified system, and that children are pulling in that entire unified system to then communicate, right? So if we take that theory into our practice, which has not been deeply empirically documented in speech, right? This is something that we're exploring relatively in recent years. And if we take that theory and we say, all right, child, we're going to collect a language sample, use whatever feels comfortable to you. And we engage with them again in an authentic way, that we can get a more robust view of what the child can do when they're allowed to language freely and they don't have to suppress one language over the other. And if we go back to how we've been taught to language sample, we've been taught to collect language samples in one language and then the other, right? And so some of the ways that we thought about this with my dissertation was, okay, let's do two monolingual samples, one Spanish, one English, and now let's let the child in the third condition, the translanguaging condition, just do what they need to do to communicate, what the songs or the stories that we were talking about meant to them. And we could see the difference in how much more language came out, how much more cultural knowing was able to be, like they were able to express a lot of their cultural knowledge when they were allowed to communicate authentically. And so it was then not a language sample just of words and syntax and morphology, but we could deeply see how much they knew about the world that they lived in and that they traversed.